Hey, Sandy, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Thank you for having me. So I am born and raised in Montreal, which is where I'm currently located, even though I do sales in the North American market. So a lot of the question I get asked is, do you speak French? Yes, I do. It is actually my third language. I speak four fluently. I have gotten into sales as, I guess, a secondary career choice. I kind of fell into it.
What was number
So
one?
law.
Really?
Yes. So I have, when I was 5 years old, I'm first generation. So I come from immigrant parents. And my dad sat me down. I remember this vividly. I was like 5 years old. And he said to me, "Do you want to be a doctor or a lawyer?" And he's like, "Pick one."
You have a choice.
You have a choice. You can be a doctor or a lawyer. And at that time, it was the time of Matlock, right? And Angela Lansbury and Murder, She Wrote. And I don't know, Matlock, I just thought he was the cool, and Perry Mason. I just thought they were the coolest things.
Yeah.
So I was like, I want to be a lawyer. And my whole education, everything that I geared towards was towards that. I actually had gotten accepted into law school at Université de Montréal. And I was starting my first year when I decided, for personal reasons, I decided to opt out because I ended up ending my marriage at the time. So I really was like, okay, what can I do to help myself raise my daughter and, have some money put aside? And I fell back into my part-time role of being in sales. I'd always been in sales. I started off like working at a candy shop when I was 16. And at that point, I was the manager of a corporate store while going to school full time. And so I thought, okay, let me go into sales. And I decided to do that for 10 years. And I thought, okay, I'll go back to school after 10 years. And I haven't looked back.
Yeah.
I really
No
haven't.
regrets?
No regrets, because I'm still kind of currently working in the, I guess, legal adjacent field. I'm in ed tech, and we deal with a lot of policy compliance and risk mitigation. So it kind of is still passionate for me because it's kind of adjacent to that. I did consider going back to law school. I'm not going to lie. I did think about it, but I have a hunter mentality. So I was like, I'd miss the kill, of the,
Yeah.
and kind of going after the sale and the relationships I've built through that. And so I haven't looked back.
And what was it about the law that attracted you? Was it the competitiveness, the detail oriented, the questioning?
Uh, the murder, the mayhem, the
Suspense?
like,
Yeah. High
yeah,
stakes? Yeah.
high stakes, the working under pressure, a little bit of, I guess, the competitiveness, but just
Yeah.
understanding like the intricacies of, you know, I was always kind of like, do I want to be defense or do I want to be prosecution? And I did want to go into criminal law. And I really wanted to go on that side to prosecution was where I thought I'd really want to be.
Yeah.
And it fascinated me. It fascinated me, like, how the law could work towards getting the justice that, needed to get done and how it could fit in or how it could fail. All of that really, and it still to this day interests me. Like I love law shows. I
Yeah.
really kind of love those type of books and love that type of like, reading documentaries. It's still something that I'm passionate about, believe it or not.
I like them too. And I think it helps me with sales because you can kind of tell when people are either lying or misrepresenting themselves,
Yes.
who has the right motive.
Right. Are they actually like, do they have the right motives? Are they really invested in this? Are they just trying to play it out to see, your hand before you're ready to give your hand? I mean, there's a lot of similarities
A lot
in
of
that aspect that
similarities.
you can find. And, I did psychology and criminology as my minor. So a lot of that psychology will play into it. And I'm part of the challenger model of selling as well. So I'm not afraid to drive to the no and get the answer and get the, kind of cut through the chase type of thing and cut through all the noise and get to the answer. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there's still a lot of similarities, and being kind of in the adjacent policy compliance space as well in ed tech is always, there's still an element of that, of like making sure that what they're doing in their policies and implementing it is not going to get them in trouble, right?
Cool.
Legally.
And what do you like about sales?
Honestly, I would say the kill is definitely, I mean, I do have a hunter mentality. So, and people are like, oh, really? And I was like, I do. I love, it excites me to walk into a room and not know anybody at a conference and know that, like, by the end of the night, I will make those connections and, not own the room, but I'd be able to work the room and be able
Yeah.
to meet people. So, that's one part of it, but it's really the relationships. I am a relationship based seller. So it's really about meeting those people, helping them identify their needs and helping them, like, with the tools that I have for them to be able to solve for them the problems, the issues that they're having.
Yeah.
I really need to believe in the products that I'm aligned with in order to effectively, I can't just sell a line item. Like I did it for a lot of years in consumer electronics and it was great. Going to CES every year was awesome, but I really wanted to be like an ambassador for the companies that I worked for and really be able to, like, be able to solve the problems that we help solve. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what I like about it.
And did you have, or what were your challenges becoming good at sales? Or was it natural, or was it?
Um, I am a people person. So, I was the manager of a corporate store. So, growing up. So, that was always my side gig while I was going to in studies and going, starting to go to law school and doing my first year. So, anticipating the needs of the customers,
Yeah.
being able to be there for them, being a resource for them to come to, knowing that I'd be able to help them get what they needed. Um, that was something that came naturally to me.
Yeah.
I think, moving in, being in the years that, I've been in, making the move from hardware to software was was interesting. Was interesting to learn to sell something that's physically kind of not something I could touch and show.
Yeah.
And there weren't at that time a lot of people I'd known that made the transition from hardware to software when I had made it. So that in itself was a bit of a challenge, but it was really great to work in a startup space where, the devs were very open and everyone was kind of like we're all in the trenches together. So it was really good to learn. I think the expression is learn by fire. Is that the expression?
Trial by fire.
Trial by fire. That's
Yeah.
right. I always mix it up in the different languages. So trial by fire, where you kind of were just in it and in the trenches and thrown in the deep end,
Yeah.
and just kind of learned on the way and on the go. And I flourish at that. So I'm really good at kind of treading water in the deep end until I can get my feet under me.
And how about the transition to business sales versus consumer sales, retail?
So I sold to major retail chains. So my perspective of being in a corporate, managing a corporate store, and then being on the selling to corporate chains was an easy transition because I could understand in terms of the marketing aspect, what would resonate with customers and the market and stuff like that. Changing from consumer electronics to educational technology was interesting. There's a lot. What really surprised me, because I was really technical, and even in being in consumer electronics, because I sold tech, I was really surprised at how little people understood about tech and how little they actually knew,
Yeah.
which was really surprising. Because I was like, well, you sell, you're the category manager for electronics. How do you not know about this new like system or this new kind of like Apple just had this update? Like, how do you not know? So that on that side surprised me. And then even in software, to walk into, I work in educational technology. So to walk into school districts and having to educate them on things that would help their lives, make their lives easier, was something that was really surprising to me. And then the flip side of that as well was really surprising to me of how they just kind of had this hear no evil, see no evil kind of mentality where if it ain't broke, don't fix
Don't
it.
touch. Yeah.
Right. And I was like, but I'm telling you, this is going to make your life so much easier. Imagine a world where you don't have to spend 3 hours doing this manual task because it's going to be streamlined for you with this, software and what we do. And it's always so surprising to me at how much like either people don't want to take ownership of the problem, or B, they just are like, okay, well, it's not a problem yet. So they wait until it becomes a
It's a
problem to
real
be
problem.
reactionary.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, why not be proactive out of the gate, right? And see it. So that's been really surprising to me as well.
And did you sounded like you embraced the technical side as well to learn about how it
Oh
works,
yeah.
why people want it.
Yes. So I am the type of person where I need to understand it in order to effectively be able to, not only sell it, but really be able to understand the needs of the customer. So I myself, when I made the jump from hardware to software, I was like, okay, I literally went to the devs and I was like, I'm not a developer, never have been, but explain to me how this works.
Yeah.
What do you mean when this and this happens? Right. And so, the devs are great. Like our software devs are amazing. They're really great people. However, they can get into the weeds.
Real
And so,
fast.
yeah. And so I'm the one in the weeds going, okay, so does it work like this? So I was really blessed to be with some of our devs, shout out to John and Kyle at Permission Click, who were really good at like explaining things to me in a way that was like, it made sense to me. And then I was like, oh, okay. So, they'd get technical and then kind of get layman with me. And it allowed me to acquire the skill of being able to do the same with customers. So I can really explain a lot of technical kind of, processes to our customers in a non-technical way for them to understand. So that was a skill that I was able to develop that I'm quite proud of.
And how do you do that? Is it through analogies or?
Yeah, it really is. It's through analogies and examples. So,
Yeah.
I will get into the weeds with a customer and being like, okay, how does your process work? Like, what are you guys doing right now? Tell me. And they're like, oh, this, it's this. I'm like, okay, no, exactly. How does it work? Okay, so you fill out a form, it goes
There
here.
you go.
Then where does it go? Then who takes it? Then who needs to see it? Does it need to go there? Do you need to store it somewhere? Does someone else need to have access? Does it need to be part of a report? So in that kind of
That
really
workflow
taking the
discovery.
time and
Yeah.
workflow, yeah, I was able to then be like, okay, this is how we can fit into that. And it also helped with my own learning because then I'm able to understand their pain points, right?
Yeah.
And then they're able to share and be like, oh yeah, it's so frustrating when this happens and that happens. And so then they're able to understand the pain points and realize how difficult things are for them, but they're just so used to doing it that way, right?
That's it. And a lot of reps make the mistake of just trying to find pain instead of
Right.
walking through their workflow, and then the pains naturally surfaces.
Yeah, I had, one thing when I've coached and mentored other salespeople and younger salespeople who are coming up, I've I've always said to them, I said, you have to make them realize, sometimes you're going to have to make them realize that there's a problem that they didn't even know they had. And you're going to have to be the one to help them discover that. And the only way you're going to be able to help them discover that is by asking those questions and having them walk through their day to day and what they go through and how they're doing their jobs and what they're doing. And once you get through that effectively, they're going to realize, oh, wow, this is a real big problem. And it's be like, yes, it is. Right.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and it helps you get that trust with the customer as well by being open to listening to them and having that transparency of, for them and for you, of where they stand and what you can do and what you can't do. That to me is another thing that's really important, is being
And,
transparent.
and having the confidence and the curiosity to ask questions that they're so used to that it's trivial to them.
Right. Yeah. It's trivial. But it also can, by digging deeper, you're able to get to the root of it. So they're so used to giving the canned answer because, let's face it, they get called on by so many people,
Right.
right? There's so many people that call on them, try and, coming into territories where I came into ed tech not knowing anybody in the industry at all. And, coming in as a total fresh face and having to go into that and go into a room where I knew nobody and make those connections. And, now, 8 years later, I can say that I have friends that will, that are clients and friends as well. But, taking the time to really be able to understand, listen, dig deep is really key, and not just about, you know, uh, it's going to sound kind of facetious, I think, to be like, but there are reps that are just kind of like, oh, yeah, we do this. It does everything you want. Here you go.
Right.
And then having to go back after and being like, well, you misinterpreted. It wasn't really exactly that. It's actually this,
Right. Yeah, because they talk about them and their product, not what the client is going through and
or
how they would
needs,
use it.
really,
Yeah.
or how they exactly. And I think that also goes to the transparency and your own integrity. Like, I'm not afraid to tell customers, we can do 90% of what you would like. And there's a 10% that we can't do, but we'll take note of that, and we'll, it might be something we'll develop and put on our roadmap. If we have enough people that are asking for the same thing, that's how our roadmap will get created. So, in the past 4 years, I was able to do that with, customers where, we got two feature sets that we were able to include in our roadmap and roll out due from these type of interactions, which in a company that's in a startup position is key, right? Because you're still kind of building it. You're still kind of learning what the needs are of your client base and what they'd require. So that is really key, because the salespeople are kind of the front line for that, of getting all that information as well.
And how did you come about this? Was it something that somebody showed you? Was it through just trial and error?
In terms of,
Digging into their current workflow, kind of walking through their world and how they do things today, and trying to take that latent pain and turn it into active pain?
I think it's just, I genuinely am interested.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it stems from my own personal life of like engaging with people. Like, I genuinely would like to get to know people. So when I meet new people, it's not just the surface. Where do you work? Who are you? What's your name? It's really like, oh, where are you from? Oh my God. Like, what's your background? Like, I'm a curious person by nature, and I want to be able to connect with people, and I'm really good at finding ways to connect. And I don't mean that in a premeditated way. I mean that in a more genuine, like, okay,
Organic.
like, yeah, like organic, like natural, like, okay, so like, oh, I'm about this, I'm about that, and finding ways to connect with people. And when it came to, sales, that's something that I just intuitively is something I've always done. And I've always, when I've coached other salespeople and stuff, I've always said, you've got to learn to find your pitch, but your pitch needs to come natural to you. You can't use my pitch.
Right.
I can give you pointers, but the keywords I use are the things that come natural to me. You need to find your own pitch. And the only way you're going to do that is by asking those questions and finding out what resonates to your client base and what feels natural to you to say those words. And that's how I learned, was sort of by trial and error, by using keywords, knowing that didn't resonate, but then the ones that did, and then sort of them latching onto that. We've all been in presentations where, people are on their phones and kind of glazed over. And I'm like, okay, I take it as a challenge to be like, hey, pay attention. And so I've gotten really good at kind of changing the mood or changing the room to get them to be like, oh, okay, this is something that relates to me. This is something that I like, or something that could be relevant for me.
And what other things really took your career to the next level?
So I would say constantly kind of better myself is one thing. I've been lucky enough to have people in my life that have been people that I could have mentored me and have had the benefit of kind of steering me and helping me through kind of transitions, or like, where I was in my career path. So I've got a really good network of people that I can rely on. I
Right.
also have really good relationships with clients and colleagues, even in the industry, that I can call up, like I actually have clients right now that I know I could call up. And if I say, hey, can we have a conversation, not work related, but just kind of career advice or like what, and I know I could have those conversations with them. And I think that just speaks to, the relationships I've been able to build and having that transparency and being able to find that there's also you know, a lot of books out there and a lot of podcasts like yours where, we have the ability to hear stories from other people and be able to understand and relate. The Challenger model, when I read the Challenger book, that was something that blew my mind. Like, don't be afraid to get to the no. And I was like, at that point, I was so afraid to be like, oh my God, if they say no, and having the objective. But I was like, no, don't be afraid to get to the no, because you'll know, okay, it's no, it could be a no or not right now, but then you just don't waste your time and move on.
Yeah.
And so I've learned that now, and I've embraced that, and I've used that ever since. So I read that book like 8 years ago. And then, podcasts have helped. I'm reading right now Atomic Habits, which is really, really good, by James Clear, especially, working in a remote environment. And sometimes you need to switch up your habits a little bit. So that's helped as well.
And what characteristic or skill would you like to develop that you think would take your game to the next level?
I would say, and I've gotten better at this, but I would say being more vocal. I think. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm pretty vocal. Like, I mean, I think you can
You're
tell.
not a wallflower. Yeah.
No, not by any means. And, I'm not a wallflower at all. But I think what I mean is I it's difficult because when I have been vocal in the past, it can be construed as being aggressive. And so I think, the skill, and I had one person say this to me, kind of like a friend who's also a mentor, had said, you got to take the emotion out of it. You've got to take the emotion out of it, and you just have to like state the facts, but be clear and concise and decisive about just stating, whether it's, promotion, or whether it's, going for a new position or a promotion within the company, asking for a raise, or even with customers, like just be decisive and take the emotion out of it. So that's something that's a skill that I've gotten much better at, and I'm learning through, and I'm getting better at kind of articulating that in a way that's much more conducive to what I needed to accomplish.
And when you're talking with other reps who are coming to you for help, what do you typically see them doing either wrong or not good enough or a little bit off?
I would say not taking the time to fully understand, like, either the product or what the need is.
Yeah.
That to me is just fundamental. Like, you need to understand what it is that you're selling and what problem you're solving. And if you don't understand those two things, and then you're going into like a conversation, and then they're going to start asking you stuff, but you're not sure how to answer it or how to switch the conversation to mold to what they want, then you're dead in the water.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
but we all stick with the marketing blurbs, what it does and how it's
but
better.
you can't do that.
People don't care.
But that's what I never understand. Like, you can't, the marketing blurb won't fit maybe the person you're talking to,
Right.
or
Yeah.
it might work once, but it's not going to work every time. So you've got to listen to what they're saying and then switch it so that it'll apply to them specifically. Right. And that's what, good salespeople can do and are quick at doing. And the ones that don't get that are the ones that unfortunately don't close as many deals.
Yeah. Because the customer thinks in problems. We salespeople think in products and functions and benefits
and
sales.
Stuff.
Yeah, we need to sell something because of all the pressure. But our job is to translate what we believe is value into what our clients believe is value.
And letting them know that, that value will benefit them and will get them to help solve the problems and issues that they have. Yeah. Being in a software that's SaaS, we're in the service industry where we're helping to solve, streamline and help them do stuff that they do. So for us, that's the industry we're in. It's not just selling a line item, and so once you get into that space of being able to ask the right questions and be able to discover that effectively, then it's like taking candy from a baby in some instances.
Right.
you
You
know
get your groove, you kind of,
yeah,
you figure out the game, and then you start executing and
well, game, yeah. Yeah, game. And it's, you make it sound like it's like, something that can be like cheated in. And I
well, a game to me is just taking the world and confining it into something we can understand.
Yes. Okay. In that sense, I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
Not
Yes.
game and gaming somebody.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Exactly. No, you're right. Exactly. That's what it is.
because otherwise it's too broad and deep and you really don't know what you have. You don't know where you are or where you're going. You kind
Yeah.
of have to have a little map, a little ways, a little knowing
Right.
where you are, where you want to go, and the best way to get there.
And the only way you're going to find the map is by asking the right question, listening, right?
Listening
It's
and
by taking what the customer's saying and figuring it out and doing the work and research to see where they are and where they want to go. And yeah, absolutely.
cool. Hey, I really appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
I'm on LinkedIn. You can see me there. That's the best way to reach me. So you can find me, I believe it's Sandy Gill. My current company that I work for is School Messenger and Permission Click. So if you just do a look for me, you'll see a cute little picture of me there, and that's where you'll be able to find me.